This right here is the most recent, brand new film camera to be released. The only new film camera in 2026 thus far, the Lomography MC-A. A quite ambitious camera that comes with a handful of fatal flaws. And well, despite me having a great time using the camera, there were a couple things that I thought were a huge issue, so let's get into it. At the end of last year, Lomography announced and almost shadow dropped the camera, getting shipped out worldwide the next month. Thankfully, Lomography sent me out a camera to use for a couple months and truly sink my teeth into and give an unbiased review of what I think is probably the most ambitious camera we've seen to date. When I first got the camera, out of excitement, I made an unboxing video and overview going over what all comes with the camera and my first initial impressions on the layout, quality, how it felt in my hands, etc. So based off that, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the technicalities of the camera. If you want to see that, check that out up there. As for a quick recap on some of the technical details and capabilities on the MC-A, just so we're on the same page. The main draw and allure to this camera, other than being a modern point and shoot, is the fact that it can shoot fully automatic, but also manually as well. There's a little lever on the top of the camera that you can swap to go between the two. A really hands-on autofocus automatic mode for someone who wants to shoot film on easy mode, but also a zone focus manual mode where you can select shutter speed and aperture for more artistic shots or intermediate users. The best of both worlds, if you will. I really love the tactile nature and feel of the dials and some of the other mechanical components of it. It really does in some ways feel like an SLR, and you can kind of feel some of the weight behind shooting film with it. In its tiny compact body, it also features a strong flash, manual winder, screen showing a perfect amount of necessary info while not bogging you down or overcomplicating the experience at all. Now, I was able to test the camera out over a month and honestly don't have a ton of video footage, which is a bit disappointing, and shot pretty sporadically with it, hence why there's no video footage. But I kind of think that's how you'd be using the camera anyways, for snapshots at events or in between moments where you don't really want to use your iPhone camera as much and capture the fleeting moments on film. I shot 4 or 5 rolls through the MC-A, and honestly, by the end of me borrowing the camera, I noticed a couple things that I thought were especially noteworthy, I guess. Before we get to that though, let's take a peek at the photos, and then we can talk more about the experience and what I think about the camera. Alrighty, we're back home, and as you've seen, there are a handful of really solid photos, but also some not so solid ones that honestly really derived from some of the major gripes that I had. Which is a good segue, honestly, into my handful of gripes with the camera thus far. First is loading is really tough. For the first handful of rolls, I honestly wasn't really convinced one way or the other if I loaded it correctly or incorrectly. I don't know, it just didn't fill me with a lot of faith, and I ended up opening the back to double check that it was actually shooting and ruined the first 4 or 5 shots of like the first 2 rolls I shot, which I didn't think was great. That's not like a premium experience, and honestly isn't asking a lot of a camera that's $500, so that was something that I really did not love. Especially if you're shooting the camera sporadically and you don't load it correctly, and it takes you a month to rip through photos, only to just get the roll back and have nothing on it would be heartbreaking. Next, I had some issues with the film winder. Now, I never really got to the bottom of what this could have been, but I had some really weird clicking and grinding when I would advance the film, which getting that grinding on like frame 22 is nauseating, I guess, to say the least. I think this, coupled with not knowing if the film's loaded correctly because of the loading shortcomings, I guess, just doesn't really give much faith in the camera while you're out shooting. And I know for me, getting a blank rollback is like the worst possible outcome, so I really hated that feeling. Film is already an expensive hobby as is, but then paying $500 for a premium point and shoot camera just to have the photos not turn out is like, we feel like such a terrible experience. All in all, it really just didn't instill much confidence, which when I'm out shooting frames and, you know, spending money subsequently on each frame, is not a feeling that I like. Next was image spacing issues. Thankfully, I didn't have too many issues with this, but I know many others did, and that's the spacing of the images on the camera. Something is causing the camera to stack images, which again is definitely an annoying little quirk. Another small gripe for me is that the battery constantly was running out. Sure, rechargeable batteries are cool, but it seems like the battery was quite underpowered, which kind of left me in the dust for some shots that, I didn't get to end up taking because the camera died. It's also just not the fastest camera. You really have to hold the shutter down to get it to focus, and then you can take the photo. There was plenty of times where I aimed up a shot, full press the shutter for it to just not work. I really wouldn't suggest it for street photography in its current state. It's a bit unreliable on a moment's notice with the shutter. With these issues in mind, I was still able to get some really nice images, and overall the camera experience is truly a nice one. The ability to swap between automatic and manual on a whim was really nice, especially for people who really want the experience of both a point and shoot and in many ways a normal SLR or rangefinder. But like I said before, it obviously comes with those setbacks. I think for a camera who's aiming for both beginners and expert, the camera really doesn't bode a ton of confidence in itself for either end of the spectrum, which is obviously a problem. I really think this camera would benefit from more time in the oven, or maybe a second version to really capitalize on some of the ambitions that it's striving for. And at that point, I think it could really be a unicorn when it comes to film cameras. For now, I think the camera is better on paper or in theory, which is a bit of a letdown, but I think there's the building blocks there to get it to be a really impressive camera in the space. It's obviously been a fun camera to use, and the build quality really is quite legit, especially by the previous standards of Lomography and their plasticky cameras. But this camera, after all, and the usability when it comes to shooting and instilling confidence, like I've sort of beat over your head at this point, but that truly is a really important factor for someone using this professionally and making money from it, or on the other side, a newbie beginner who is trying to get into this expensive hobby and they keep on wasting even more money on an already expensive consumable like film after purchasing their $500 premium camera. I can see that definitely becoming pretty defeating pretty damn quick. So I guess this begs the question, would I purchase this camera? Well, no, but that comes with a bit of a caveat. I already own one of the best and most legendary film cameras of all time in the Contax T2, so buying another $500 point and shoot seems a bit unnecessary. That being said, if Lomography was able to fix a lot of the issues that I've brought up until this point, then I really do think we could be sitting at a really good value buy for $500 for a new camera. It really does fit a really unique void in the market, something incredibly simple and automatic, but can be shot manually for much more control, making the MC-A issues aside a really powerful camera. Lomography really has made their best camera to date with the MC-A, and I'm excited to see where the future takes them. Especially with this camera basically being shadow dropped, I think with a bit more marketing, planning, and hopefully funding from this camera, we could be seeing some future projects coming from Lomography that are definitely exciting. All in all, the camera does have some fatal flaws that would make me inclined to wait for a newer version. Much like the same mindset for new vehicles that come out, wait at least a year for the kinks to get worked out, and then you can get that next model. Otherwise, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you shot the MC-A or if it's something that you'd be interested in picking up in 2026. Hopefully I didn't deter anyone too far away, and I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments who really love their versions. At least it seems like with some of the other new cameras like the Pentax 17, there's a lot of discourse online about people disliking it, but then when I hear from actual people who own the camera, they really love it. And I'm curious if that's going to be the same thing here. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Till the next one, stay safe, stay shooting. Adios.